Well, hello. It's Friday morning, and we are here doing relaxing painting with. Hi, it's Friday. We're doing relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons. Dyson Dungeons is a Twitch streaming program. We do painting Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 10 until 2 Eastern Time. I'll say it now and probably repeat it several times during this. We are taking a brief vacation next week, so we will not be doing relaxing painting next week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But then we'll be back the following Monday. So a week from Monday, we will be back, but next Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we're going to be taking off to a vacation. What this says is that this is Roabert with an A, the tailless tabaxi. I don't know, it's kind of cat-like, kind of bear-like. It could be a whole lot of different things. We're not really sure what it is. I don't think it's a tailless tabaxi, unless it's maybe like a lynx or a manx or something like that. But we're going to try to paint it and see how it turns out. This particular model was at one point dual wielding, very long, thin sword, and this one broke off and we never found it. So what I'm actually going to do today, and this may or may not be a success, it may turn out to be a failure, is I'm going to try to manufacture a replacement blade that looks kind of like that. So I'm going to spend some time in this, maybe like a half hour or something, give it a try to see if I can't, out of a toothpick, because it's softwood, I can carve it and I can sand it, try to make something similar to that. Okay? And if it doesn't work, what I'm going to do is, he's got the hilt here still, is I may end up trying to get rid of that. But keeping this in mind, I'm going to use the thick end of the toothpick first because there's a curve. And I think that I can, it would make more sense just to use the thin end and do a little bit of sanding, but there's a curve there. So I'm going to try to replicate the curve by sort of carving out a sword-like shape using X-Acto knives and emery cloth and sandpaper. We'll see what happens. Haven't really done anything like that before, is fabricating a replacement weapon with material that is not like the original material at all. But we'll see how it goes. So what I'm looking at is something, I'm just going to score the toothpick to get more or less the same length. They don't have to be exact. Close. It's close in length. And then what I'm going to try to do is cut away the bottom here. It's going to curve down like that. So this will be the bottom and the top and the top. And I'm going to take some away up here and down here and here. Really very thin blade. So anyway, yeah, I'll just start cutting away here. Curve kind of like this. I'm going to cut some of this away. get rough shape. And then I'm going to use sandpaper. Hopefully this is softwood and it'll sand quickly and easily. Because this process is just going to leave little splinters and stuff. I get an approximation first. Yeah, and this gives me something to do while I'm talking to you about Dice and Dungeons. Dice and Dungeons is a producer of a D&D campaign that streams Sundays at 2 with a nice live chat. The characters that are there are incredibly witty and entertaining, and believe it or not, still alive. Just reached. Anyway, we're doing this heist, and if you tune in, you'll see how that's going. It's a seven-part plan, which for this party, if you've been following us at all, a plan is usually, oh, I know what we should do. We should do that thing. Let's get started. Make it so. And then then we just start, because, you know, that's what we do for planning. But this one is an elaborately planned heist with 7 steps, each of which Zoria has named, which is kind of fun. And it's so far I think we've started it now, and we haven't been killed yet, which is really kind of startling. Anyway, tune in. Because if you tune in, that shows my age. If you join us in the stream, you'll be able to find out what the 7 steps are and whether or not we will be successful in pulling this off without, you know, being destroyed. Well, so far, okay, I've been cutting some of this wood off. Yeah, the nice thing is that toothpicks are pretty cheap, and if it doesn't look good or doesn't work out, I can just start over and use some more chat time while we're doing this. Anyway, join us Sundays at 2 Eastern Time and watch our campaign, because it's really very entertaining and right now a little bit intense. If we pull this off, then we are going to go and do some other thing, and I'm not really even sure at this point what it will be. Probably involve some, you know, dangerous entry into like a keep or something like that. Here's a rough approximation of a curved blade. One thing about this, even though the kind of profile shape is not too bad right now, is that it's way thicker than this. You can see it's very thin. And that's bent too. Anyway, yeah. So it's, you know, sort of that shape. Maybe in this direction it's a little bit better. I'm going to start using the sandpaper to continue to refine the shape of this and get the rough edges off. And after I smooth that out and get all the little frayed bits and things off of it, like this rubbing it against it. It's emery cloth, actually, which is designed for use with metal, but you know, it's a grit. It rubs things. It's nice soft material, so you can see this side is now smoother than the other side, which has not been rubbed against an abrasive. I'm going to try to get this to a shape that I like, and without all the rough edges. And then I'm going to make it thinner so that its profile. I need to remove almost half of that material. I'll probably do one side and then the other. That bit. So it's curved. Broken yet. It's still got little bits of frayed material that need to come in. And what I'm going to do is, if I actually get this to look somewhat sword-like, to match the other blade, is I'm going to use epoxy, which, because plastic and wood are otherwise not really compatible materials, use some epoxy and see if I can get it to hold in place. I've replaced. Yes, I will do a flip. I just want to get the rough edges off of this potentially replacement weapon, and then I will do a flip. I'm going to use epoxy and hope that it works. I did a figure not too long ago, one of the little lizard guys that we were working on, one of the 8, where one of the weapons came off, and I epoxied that back on, and it held pretty well until it didn't, and I did it again, but now it's holding. So go through that process. This isn't painting at the moment, but you know, it's going to be painted. I don't want to take too much material off. I want to compare this now. Compare this blade to the other blade. And yeah, wow, that's really thin. There's really not much there. So before I make it thinner in the profile direction, in the up and down direction, I need to make it much thinner this way. I think, you know, here there's a little bit of a bump. I can take some off there, and then I'm going to probably rub it from the bottom. It's just easier to do it this way with the curve like that. Make it thinner, but first I'm going to get that bit off. Oh, flipping. I have to do a flip first, though. I can flip a toothpick. Get it that way. Can't tell which is which. This one has paint on it. And the paint is pretty much the same on both sides, but one there's a gray block there and one not. That's not the gray block side. The gray block side. So, tiny little toothpick flip today. This is a 150 grit, which is fairly coarse, which means that it, with this very soft wood, bites into it pretty quickly. Get the profile closer to the other one. It doesn't have to be exact. The weapons don't have to be identical, but you know, I'd like them to look sort of the same. Just, you know, get that little curve right there a little better. Okay, so going back to this, you can see that the original sword, the one that didn't break off, is really very thin. I'm going to shape this down slowly but surely, rubbing it right on the edge here until it is also very thin. Rapier-like. People don't dual wield rapiers. Yeah, the material comes off pretty quickly against this 150 grit stuff. Just keep checking it. I don't want to go too far. Yeah, it is pretty close at the tip there. Eventually gets thinner near the hilt, which is weird. This guy was glued onto this base, and it's coming loose. So when I use the epoxy, I think I'm gonna still holding. There isn't much grip there. I mean, it's got a little toe here, a little toe there. I might try to reinforce that with a little more epoxy, because if I put it on the stand, the holder, to try to paint it and it moves around, that's going to not be very effective, not helpful. Getting a lot closer. So it's mainly near the back here. And I haven't been shaping it very much. That needs to be done. Like I said, I'm not going to try to be totally exact, but I want it to look similar. So that when you're looking at it, from the distance of if you're playing, if that's a character that either joins your party or attacks your party, at that distance or on camera, it will look like he actually is dual wielding, like originally designed. I had some of this plastic material. It's pretty soft too. I probably could have been using that just as well as this. So it's not curved quite as much, but it has, a noticeable curve. It's still a little bit fat right here in the middle, which if it were actually a real sword, probably would be the way it would look, but I'm going to just stop there because it's starting to break off of the handle, so to speak. And I need to reduce the thickness by half. And I want to be able to just rub it against the take it off there. What the blade is looking like. So you can see It's fairly thin, but it's in profile this way. It's still fairly thick, so. Yeah, this is going to be a challenge now. I think I might have to do it this way. I'm going to hold it down. I'm just going to keep trying to rotate. This way. Basically, I want to get a center and not break it. And maybe, actually, I want to do that in the opposite order. I want to not break it and then get a center. Would have been easier if it had stayed on the rest of the toothpick, but I had sanded it down thin enough so that it just broke off. Here's another option. Let's see if this works. I could scrape. And just sort of polish it with the emery cloth or the sandpaper. Shaving it seems to be working okay. Let's see how it's looking. Look at it from, yeah, it's getting a little thinner. I'll do it in one direction, then rotate it 180 degrees. And up on the other side. Looking at this now, if I were to do this over again, and I might if I need to start over, is I would have reduced the thickness first, and then I would have gone for the shape, the curved shape. Because this is being kind of a pain, and if it were just thinner to begin with, actually shaping it with the curved blade look would have been actually kind of easier because there'd be less material to work with. But it is what it is, so we're going to just continue this for a little while. Nothing's broken yet. Know that's actually not too bad now. So let me get the other end, the pointy end. There now as well. Getting little wood dust here. Can't call it sawdust. Knife dust, X-Acto dust. It's actually coming along okay now. There's a little bit of a raised spot there. at it from here and here, you can see this blade is still a little thicker up here, but it's really pretty close. So just going to try to sand it down a little bit, get rid of any rough edges. So here, this is the new replacement blade. Now what I want to do, before I get the epoxy out, is I'm going to take a look at a contact point to see. Definitely needs reinforcing. Is, you know, what has it got to hold on to here? Because it's basically going here. That's kind of a nice, it's not bad. I think that'll work. Okay. And so what I'm going to do now is, there's a couple things that need to be done. This needs to be attached there. A little bit of this bit here is not going to be helpful. This has come off, and so that needs to be reattached. Clean the base, get the old epoxy on. What I'm going to be using is called 5-minute epoxy. It means that it's supposed to set up, get hard, in 5 minutes after mixing it. So you mix the epoxy and the hardener together, and then I've got 5 minutes before it is hard. It gets tackier and tackier as the moments go on, and ideally what would happen is that the parts you're putting together would be like clamped or held in place with something for the better part of like 8 or 9 minutes until everything was really well set up. Totally cured, that takes the better part of the day, but setting us so that they can be, you know, manipulated, like put back on the stand and painted. But both of these are not really compatible with that. I mean, this guy's up on his toes, wonderful, right? So there isn't much of a contact area. And he spans the stand like that, so that it extends over the edge. And there's a little gap underneath, so, you know, there's just really not much contact at all. And we'll flop around. You don't want them leaning forward. Leaning forward is not too bad, but leaning back looks dopey. And this little sword that I fabricated, there's hardly any contact point at all there. So that needs to be supported until the epoxy has cured enough that it holds itself. I mean, it's not very heavy. I'm just cleaning off little mold mark kinds of things. I'm going to try to get the epoxy off the bottoms of the feet without hurting the feet. Just to, and no, seriously, I just broke the other sword. Ta-da! So I get to put 2 of these on. Probably be spending the rest of the show just gluing it on, having it fall off, not being right, taking it off, trying it again. We might be having, instead of relaxing painting today, what we might be having is a little less than totally relaxing epoxy effort. So what I usually do in situations like this, so I don't want to hold a tiny little sword blade at an impossible angle for 5 solid minutes, is I let the epoxy cure for a while until it's kind of tacky, and then apply it and hold it only for like 2 or 3 minutes instead of 5, which is still kind of a chore, but it's only half as much of a chore as holding it for the full time. Okay, well, you know, so there's 2 alternatives here. One is we could make this a fist fighter, right? And just give it up and say, these are brass knuckles. Look at that. I mean, they almost look like it, right? So I could say that these are just brass knuckles, and this is a fist fighter monk kind of thing. Or I could continue my efforts to replace the blades. What do you think? So what do you think? Should we just do an epoxy show here for a while? Try to get these blades on like one at a time? Or should we modify the model just ever so slightly and say that these are in effect like brass knuckles? The only problem with that, of course, is that it's about on the top of the hand, and here, you know, brass knuckle would go right across there. So they'd be really kind of crappy brass knuckles. Anyway, yeah, swords. So this will actually might take a while, because I might have to do this in like 3 different phases. I'm going to start with reattaching him to the base, because if it's on the base, I can put it on the holder, and it'll make it easier to hold onto the original. Here we are. So the disaster things. The original blade here, and the fabricated blade there. Yeah, well, you know, not exactly how I was expecting today to go, but sometimes that's the way it is. Why is this water leaking? Really? Oh my. Okay, yeah. It's a little plastic cup. This thing that I use for the for washing brushes is so you would think, if you were watching today, that I'm doing everything possible to avoid painting. That is not entirely literally true. Okay. We started out with this guy who was a dual blade wielder, and one blade was intact and the other one was broken off and lost. So I fabricated a replacement blade from this toothpick, and it ended up looking pretty good. And then while I was removing the epoxy from the feet so that I could reglue it to the stand, I broke off the other blades, so now I've got a bladeless dual wielding animal-like critter that I really don't think is a tabaxi. It really looks more like a bear. Don't you think? Don't you think it looks more like a bear than a cat? Yeah, so regardless of what I do with the hands, I need to epoxy it back to the base. Hopefully this guy which I may end up eventually using to clean brushes, will not be leaking on an ongoing basis. I'm going to set it over there for now. Yeah, epoxy. So you're all familiar with this. You got your quick cure 5-minute epoxy. Mix the two together in equal proportions. Apply, hold until it sets. Paper towel does not work for this because it is just too absorbent. So we use a real high-tech alternative, that being just a regular old sheet of lined paper. Stuff out of the way. Try not to lose these two swords. Did we come back to them? This toothpick will have a second life as a epoxy mixer. Well, the other thing that we need when we're doing this is isopropyl alcohol to wipe things off. The epoxy, the isopropyl alcohol works pretty well for wiping off epoxy before it cures, because it almost inevitably gets, for some reason, on fingers, even if you don't come close to it. I'm just mixing up basically dots, just little dots of it, because I just need a spot there and a spot there. So, because grape them. Here we go. Mingling of the chemicals. And the epoxy to be thoroughly mixed in exactly the same proportions, which never happens. And then I will put the epoxy where it was before. And I need, because that's the way it is. And now, unless I find a way to prop this guy up, I'm going to have to hold it for a good long time. Doesn't stand up really quite on its own. There. So while I'm holding this guy for the better part of like 3 minutes before, I'm just seeing all sorts of mold marks, just little spots. On this particular model, there's been like a half a dozen of these little nubs that, you know, they're really tiny, but when you paint, you know, you paint that cloak and the paint gets on there, then you can really see them, because you're on a demarcation line between like the fur of its head and this cloak. So let's talk about what we're going to try to do with this guy if we ever get it to the point where it's one piece again. You can see, you know, a little bit on the back here, but there's just a lot of folds, lots of details on the back of the cloak and around here. And then there's layers. It's like 1, 2, 3 layers. What I want is a color that's light enough that when I wash it, these folds become really clear, so that these are like shadows. So these folds become like shadows. And we've only got, we got 4 kinds of wash. We have a blue, a green, a black, and a brown. There's actually a dark gray, so I guess 5. And I'm thinking with this, The blue wash doesn't show very well. It only shows up against really one of the colors that we've got. And I've used it before. It's a light blue, you know, and you can get it into the shadows. But there's green wash, which we, darker green, which we've used for sewers, actually does pretty well. And what I might try to do then is I might paint this cloak green of one form or another, and then use the wash to show the folds, because this is the primary part, the detail of the model is the cloak. And the green wouldn't be too bad. That gives me alternatives for the other colors. He's got a sash, he's got pants. I mean, he's wearing a lot of different clothes that I don't want all to be monochromatic, but I don't want it to be like clown colors either. He's not a court jester. He's not going to be purple and yellow. Here to see how it's coming along, and it's getting tacky, but it's not hard. So I might be able to let this guy go, and he might stand up, but odds are against it right now. I think I will rotate it though. I'm going to check the posture. Yeah, see? Boom. Fortunately, there's still a bunch on there. Unfortunately, it's still adhering. And so I just need to not do anything else other than hold it still until this is solid enough to hard enough to let go, which will be another couple minutes. So he's got all these folds, especially in the back, somewhat around the front, and I'm going to try to get, I want different colors that are compatible with each other. I don't think browns, that would, it's a little more colorful than that. I'm thinking in the blues and the greens. And we've got a fair number of blues, but again, I want to use the wash on this, so I'm going to try a green. Color chart has disappeared. There's like a deep green that's a little bit of an olive color, flat green that has sort of the same sort of tone. I want to use sort of a lighter green. I might even use the sick green with the green wash to bring out the folds, and then work either like with sort of compatible blues or other greens for the rest of his clothing. Like his pants might look good in kind of a dark blue. And then his sash could be even a brighter color, like a beige maybe with a brown wash, ivory. There's no real metal on him. He's got these bracers, but it's more likely than not that those are leather, and they would be probably painted leather. Oh, this is getting surely, yeah. I could, still not cured, so I'm not going to mess around too much with it, but I want to look at the posture. I don't want him leaning, leaning a little forward is good, but okay. And he's got decent contact on his toes, so we're going to let this guy be right there. That's where it is. Yeah, so what I need to do now is attempt to reattach the blades. So just holding it on here is one thing, but holding this tiny little blade like this for the better part of 3 minutes is kind of a pain. So I'm going to see if I can if it's even possible to reattach these guys. If not, he will become a fist fighter. Those are the smallest spots that I can get out of those bottles, but they are 10 times more than I need, because as you can see here, the contact area of the blade is practically invisible. There's nothing there. So I'm not sure if this stuff will even hold. Well, I'm going to let this get for a bit while I show you what we're up against here. This hands first. They're actually holding, that's kind of a shock. Okay, so this blade, this tiny little bit of plastic, needs to go here, like that. And you can see that there's like no contact point there at all. Tiny little bit. It doesn't weigh very much, but it's just really fragile, which is why it broke off to begin with. So basically that, it just needs to be there, and it needs to be held pretty much motionless, which will be for the better part of, say, 2 minutes. Well, I let this sit for like 2 minutes or so until it starts getting tacky enough. Well, basically I want the wait time of holding to be less than 6 minutes, because I wouldn't be able to do that. And there's not enough things to chat about for that long. I'm holding it other than to say, boy, this is great fun. Just sitting here holding this blade against the hilt. That's probably what I'll do, is I'll probably be talking about that. So this all started out as this guy had 2 blades. This blade was intact. The other one broke off, got lost. I fabricated a replacement. Not a bad replacement at all, out of a toothpick. That's going to go here. Okay. But he broke off of his stand, and in the process of removing the epoxy from his feet so I could glue him, I broke off the other sword. So, yeah. It's kind of an ongoing not quite a disaster, I guess. I couldn't call it that. It's just a little model. But it's certainly keeping me away from painting it, because these pieces need to go on, and they need to kind of hold. There. So there. This needs to be held more or less motionless now for the better part of 2.5 minutes. As you can see, I'm not succeeding too well at that motionless part. I was kind of turning it to see if the orientation of the blade was right, but we're not going to get too fussy about that. What we're going to get fussy about is whether it sticks or not. And right now the epoxy is still liquid and it's not sticking, so yeah. If you start at, oh, I would say at about 3 minutes, start at 187 and count down from 187 one number at a second. And when you get to 0, I'm going to let this go and it will fall off. You down to now like 184.3. to be a better angle. Giving every impression of just not wanting to work. I've got a little, actually I think I've got a little tube of super glue somewhere, which sets up in fractions of a second. It's almost tempting to pull that out, see if it's still good at all, and use that instead. Because this, wow, this is just really, it's setting up. I mean, it's really almost totally set up right now, but it's not adhering. I'm going to be off camera for a second. I need to support this in a different way. What I'm doing is I'm holding the sword blade there. Attached with sagging. Bit. See if that hardens enough to support the blade. If it does, when I mix the next batch of epoxy for the other blade, I'm going to put a little bit more around the connecting point, just tiny little bits, especially on the underside, to try to reinforce it. So I'm just going to hold this here now for another minute and see if it holds in that position. If it does, then I've actually got a chance. If not, I will try epoxy one more time. And if that doesn't work, I'll pull out the super glue. And if that doesn't work, he is going to be a fist fighter. So, you know, it's been about an hour now, and I have accomplished essentially nothing. Yeah. Pretty good, other than breaking some things. I fabricated a replacement blade, which went really well. That was all set to go. And then I broke it off its stand, and in preparing it to be replaced on the stand, broke off the other blade. It's now standing on a stand, which is nice. Okay. Like I said, if that holds, and it looks like it kind of is, I'm going to mix more epoxy for the other blade, the one I fabricated. And I'm also going to put a little drop holding. And put a little bit more around the junction here, just to reinforce it. At this point, it's, you know, it's setting up really quite quickly. I'm very surprised that this is holding on at all, which is really nice. Okay, so I'm going to mix a little more. You can do two things with this. One is I'm going to try to attach the blade, the other blade, the one I fabricated out of a toothpick. And I'm also going to try to very delicately put a little bit more on the junction point of that blade and the hilt. And there'll be kind of a blob there, but the blob won't be very visible. But a sword blade that's like sagging or breaking off or something of that sort would be visible. Yeah, I still see it sagging a little bit. Still moving. Moving a lot and keep touching this. So I guess this would be like a many part project. Point of a toothpick again. What I want to do is get epoxy here on the other side and let it harden and actually prop this up just a little bit as it's hardening. Later. So I'm trying to wrap the epoxy around this as a reinforcement. Give it a go anyway. Is this hilt here. This replacement blade here. Pretty big blot of it on here. It's, you know, it just needs to be. Just to get kind of tacky. And then, yeah, we're going to give this a shot. We're going to try to attach the fabricated wooden blade, which will then be painted metallic so it will look metally, to be yeah, but not bad. I don't want to move it, so I'm just going to hold this here. Seriously, stick to the sticky tack. That's why it's called that. this here for like, oh, count to 100. Hopefully it will be set up by then. I got the mixture right. Only a minute to go before I think I can safely let this go. And when I let it go, we will see if it adheres. If it adheres, it's likely to sag a little bit. So I will just prop it up for another minute or so after that to make sure that it holds. Sorry that it's off camera, but I just can't let it go right now, because I know for sure that it won't hold. So yeah, a little less than a minute. At the same time, I'm trying not to put pressure on the other blade, which I just did with my finger. Here, look. Huh. So this one's holding up okay. The epoxy I put around it made a blob, but it's not going anywhere. This one, you know, the angle and all is really not too bad. I would say that this is kind of a success. The epoxy is still not ready. It's not ready to paint, but it's not sagging. It's probably because it's very light. It kind of matches the other one, both in terms of thickness and in curvature. What I'm going to do now is just continue to hold it for a little while, because the last thing I want to do is have to start all over. So let's talk about painting, because it looks like there's a possibility I might be able to do some painting today, now that I've got this completed. The main part, there's this, he's got this cloak with these really nice folds, and I think I'm going to try to use the green. I want to bring the folds out, and the way to do that is with a wash, or maybe with dry brushing, but I really don't do dry brushing very well. I mean, one way to do it would be to paint it kind of a darker undercoat and then dry brush the lighter coat, or to paint kind of a lighter coat and then use a wash on it to get the darker wash into the folds of the cloak. So there's that. And then underneath that, there's this, these little shoulder guards. And under that is a shirt that goes here and here. That shirt is not necessarily the same. See, it's got these folds on it as the skirt and the pants. So he's got many, many layers of cloth on. And then there's a sash. And the sash, these look like folds in the sash. And a cape that has to be painted in the back underneath. That's going to be a little bit of a challenge. And skirt underneath. So I'm really kind of torn about what colors I want. I want it to be harmonious. You know, I don't want just all sorts of jarring colors, but I also don't want it to be monochromatic. So in looking at the color profiles, we've got many shades of beiges and browns. Like I could use a beige sash, because I want that to kind of show. There's this bit under here. You know, underneath that. so many layers on this, it's just so hard to tell which ones go together. You can tell there's pants, you can tell there's this undershirt thing, that this is probably part of the shirt. And this, what I usually do is I start at the top and work my way down through the layers. I might make this kind of ornamental, a bit there. Okay, well, I'm going to paint the underside of the cloak. I want to paint that black. I just don't want it to distract. You know, I don't want that to be distracting. This mold, I'm saying it's under here. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is paint the underside of the cloak black just to get that done, and then I have to paint, you know, up to it without getting onto it. That will be a little trick in coming with some of these colors. I think I'm going to paint the cloak a green just to get that started so we can get a base coat of something in. And it's even got a little fringe there. Wow. So I can paint that in. You can pick a color for these. And look at, you know, various and sundry blues and grays, maybe. Blues and grays would work. Because we've got, like, you know, let me see if I can find our color chart. Alexis very nicely cleaned everything up here. I'm going to be off camera just a second. Chart disappeared. There, maybe there. It's a little awkward. It's hard to pick colors without the color charts. It's probably in a very obvious spot that I can't see because, you know, obviousness. Let me clean some of this other stuff out of the way. Okay, well, what I'm going to do is paint a couple of base colors in. I'm going to paint the back of the cloak. I said I'm going to do that black, so I'm going to just do that. And I said I would do the cloak. Initially, I was thinking green, because I've got green wash that would very nicely bring out all the folding, which is important. And then I'm going to, after that, I'm going to take a break. And instead of wandering around off camera, blathering on about I can't find it, I'm going to go find it. So we'll start with, I'm just going to use the regular black. I really want it very dark and maybe even a little bit shiny. Even a little bit shiny inside. The back of this cloak, which will be green on the outside. So the black that's actually a little shiny is the Vallejo black. We haven't used this in a very long time. doing this, I'm going to say, really quite amazingly, so far, the epoxying of the stand and the swords, I haven't broken them yet. I'm going to use this fairly large brush because whatever I paint here, when I get to the edges of it, it'll be painted onto over. Just getting back here, it's just going to get on everything. There's just no way to avoid it. These overhanging things like this are just, anybody who's done painting just knows that getting in there when there's just no space and you can't get the brush at the right angle, this is where we really start whining and complaining and moaning about how diabolical and evil the designer was in putting this together. So I'm just painting this. I could paint it the color of the outside, but I think it'll look good just being really dark. Using this larger brush because basically I'm just using the side of it to try to get, no, I don't want bright spots basically. Just want it to be like a shadow in the background. Nice, yeah. See? Inside there. All over everything else, but as I paint those, hopefully I won't get it all over the cloak. But I am trying to not have bright spots on. Okay, well, it turns out this, which had apparently spilled rather than leaked before, is not getting all over everything, which is good. So now I'm going to paint, put a base coat on this cloak part here, sort of a cowl around its neck, and swooping down. And I would really like kind of a light green color on that. Oh man. Okay, that could have been a disaster. I could have broken off all the swords again. But the greens that we have, the brighter colors are darker. I mean, so we've got this thing called sick green, which is not a bad color, but I want to use the green wash on it to show the folds. So this is pretty much the only option I've got. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing is painting the cloak around, down, and around the edges, and around the top. There's a little bit of a fringe here. I'm going to catch that later. That will be a contrasting color. I might even make it metallic, okay, just to let people know it's there, that I noticed it and gave it a painting. And after I get that base coat on, I'm going to take a short break. And find the color chart so that I can start picking out colors for the rest. So I think, other than this, which will be fairly brightly colored, green, I think I'm going to go with like blues and grays. And I think that will be okay. The reason I'm picking green again for this is that I want the folds to show. And to be honest, after the break, I think I might even go so far as to wash it right away. Usually something that's done at the end, just to see how it looks, because if it doesn't look good, then I want to redo it. Yes, the color will get a little less green and a little more kind of grayish, yellowish as it dries. Yeah. Is I might actually do the wash on the green, because if it doesn't work, I want to be able to repaint it. It'll be easier to do that sooner than later. There's a slightly better chance that I'll stay on camera. Okay, so I painted the underside of that black, just again, basically to get it out of the way. It went down pretty well. Make sure it's in all the folds. As you can see, when this base coat goes on and it dries, it becomes sort of monochromatic in a way that all of the folds in the fabric, anyway, you really can't see them very well. Because of all the folds, I'm just rotating this to make sure I got paint covering the whole thing. Okay. And I have to say, somewhat miraculously, it hasn't fallen off of its base, and the swords haven't broken off either. So just to recap, this is relaxing painting. For the first hour, it turned out to be relaxing epoxying with Dyson Dungeons. I am painting what is being advertised as a tailless tabaxi that I think looks like a bear. Let's let that dispute fester. There was a series of issues with this model. It was dual wielding, and early on, before it was even primed, managed to break off this sword and lose it. And so what I said was, well, let's fabricate a new one. So I got out a piece of toothpick and carved it down and sanded it down and turned it into a reasonable facsimile, I think, of the other blade. Okay? And then what happened is that this is epoxy to this base, is I broke that off. And so in the process of re-epoxying this to the base, I broke that off, the other sword, and then epoxied this back on in a way that looks more or less okay, except for the blob there. And then put this on, and now it's intact. But we used up, I would say like an hour and 10 minutes of time just trying to get this thing back together again. Now what I'm trying to do is, it's got all of these layers, just multiple layers. It's got its cloak, it's got these shoulder pads, it's got an undershirt that I think the sleeves and around the back here. This almost looks like an extension of that. I mean, in some ways it probably is. It's like a cloak that goes around, a robe tied with a sash, and there's a pair of pants underneath. And then there's some little embellishments like there, and a little bit of a fringe back here. The problem with all of these layers is trying to decide what colors they need to be, because I want them to be compatible and kind of harmonious, but at the same time, you know, not indistinct from each other. So the shoulder pads, I mean, those are separate, and I'll make those the same color as the bracers, because they're kind of like armor. I have to decide whether this undershirt part flows down here into this cloak or not. And I would think it should, but the texture is really different. It's kind of rippled here. So do the two pieces get tucked together under the sash, or do they flow from top to bottom? That is the question. And then the pants will just be a complementary color. And I need to decide on the fur color, probably some sort of brown with a brown wash. Detail in the face, the inside of the mouth, eyeballs, nose, that kind of thing. Anyway, I'm letting this dry. I'm going to take a quick break and find my color chart. Then when I'm going to come back, I'm going to grab the green wash and see if I can emphasize the folds, the really nice folds in the model around this cowl and down the back. And while I'm on break, I'm going to be looking for my color chart so that I can pick the colors for the rest of the model. So I will be back in, I would say, like 10 minutes. So please join us then for the ongoing adventure of the dual-wielding, it isn't a tabaxi, it's a bear, but we're calling it that on the show anyway. Okay, short break. I found the color chart. That was good. I didn't spill anything. Get green off this brush. Okay. Check this over. There's a little bit of kind of a mystery spot on this model. I mean, in addition to everything else. But I think it's like this undershirt cloak thing that goes here, and I'm going to extend it down. Just right here and here. There's little bits. There's something under that, and then there's that as well. What I'm going to do is into this brush. It's my little bitty brush, all the bristles. There we go. All 3 bristles on it. That's all there were. It come off. So what I'm going to do, I'll put just a little bit of black paint in there. I mean, so you can see it's there, but it's not really part of anything. It's the tiniest little crack in between this in between here. And I'm just going to make that black so that it's there, and you can see it's there, but it's mainly just like a shadow, like the back of the cloak. It's not part of anything else. It's really kind of odd. And as I'm doing this, I'm seeing that there's a little spot, believe it or not, on the cloak that didn't get painted green, so I'm going to touch that up too real quickly. Paint. Oops. Come on, paint, behave. And that's just as well. You need to touch up that little spot where the black got on the green. And I think this green paint is still good. There you can see there's a spot underneath there that didn't get painted. Put the black on that too. I would be using the green wash. Ordinarily, I would use kind of a broad brush and just kind of brush it down into the folds or across. But I'm going to use this little brush and just see if I can get it into the creases. I have no idea how this is going to turn out. Okay. I don't have a color chart sample. Oh, I found it, by the way. Many colors. I've got these greens. This is the one I used because it's lighter. But you can see I've got a variety of blues that have gray in them, as well as a light blue. And then there's the gray color like this that could be used for the sash maybe, or the sash could even be this to give it some emphasis. But I think I'm going to paint, since I'm digressing here, I think I'm going to paint the armor part here and the bracers. Probably let's just say this. I want to paint the cloak, the main cloak. There's a lot of that color here. Okay. I really kind of like this medium blue color. It's a little dark, okay, but it's got the blue and it's kind of subtle. It's not a bright blue like that. I don't want to use the aquamarine. It's just going to be too bright for this guy. So I could either use that or the light blue. I'm kind of a fan of the light blue with a blue wash. I've used that over and over. And I think I might, I'm going to do that again. I'm going to do the light blue, use the medium blue on the shoulder and the armor here. Okay, and then the pants, I might do those like in this thick tan. And then I'm going to use this dark sand for the sash. And that actually, if I use a brown wash on that, will look pretty decent. So if I remember what I said, then I'm going to use the light blue for the main color all over the place here. And then the dark sand with a brown umber wash for the sash. I'm going to use the medium blue for the armor pieces. That will reduce the number of colors that I'm using. And I think the deck tan, which is kind of a grayish color, would look good on the pants. But first I want to see how this wash works on the cloak. Now I know everything else is going to be kind of blues and grays, but bring out all the folds and here it looks almost black. It's really quite dark, kind of olivey. You get this on here early so that if it turns out to just be not good, if it looks bad, I can just repaint everything. Maybe I'll do the cloak in turquoise or something then. Much, but he seemed to be making an appearance on the model. Here, maybe there's just not enough. When I touch it there, it's just not working there. So I'll use the bigger brush, see if I can control it, see what happens. Again, the worst that can happen here is that it ends up looking terrible, and then I redo it. trying not to bump the very delicate, many times broken over swords. Not to be real streaky, dirty either. I just wanted to emphasize the folds, so too thick. I think it's not too bad. Looks a lot darker on the camera than it does here under the lights. Picking up the folds okay. And the color is not too bad. I like it a little darker like that. I'm just going to say that's a success. Okay, that's coming out pretty much what I was looking for. Spacing it around here so it's not too heavy. Okay, so I think at this point I need to be looking at repainting this whole thing. Doing its job. What I'm going to paint next are the little bits of armor. There's some armor here and some bracers. Down to there, and I'm going to paint those just medium blue color. It won't be too much of a clash with anything else. Now we're going to try this little brush that wasn't behaving because I need to get up to, but not onto, the green cloak. Paint is getting on, kind of like mid brush. There we go. Just put a block of paint on and then push it up to where I want it using the tip. Like, you know, it looks like I need to trim that tip back a little bit. It's like too long and too flexible. Or better yet, what I really need to do is just get some new brushes. This brush, as I mentioned on this show before, is like antique. I purchased this when we were doing the original, the very, very original box set of elves, lizardmen, and orcs and goblins of Warhammer. And that was, say, like 20 years ago. Different brush. The other one I've never really liked it, but I think it might work better here. The bristles are just shorter. Get it to behave, it might be color is okay together. I mean, it's not bad. I wanted the cloak to kind of stand out. Everything else is going to be kind of blue and kind of grayish blue. Wanted the armor to be a different color because it is the armor, not just the undershirt. But since it's right up against the green there, there's always the chance that it would look not good. This side, I'll just do the bracers. A bit of elbow. That would be the fur color of this tailless tabaxi, apparently. Likely some sort of shade of brown, right? The demarcation line of these items, like these bracers, is really clear, and sometimes it's not. Like, it's really clear here on the inside of the wrist, where who cares? You can't really see it, and it's not too terribly good on the outside, which is the part that's most critical in terms of visibility. Complain about that a little bit. I like to whine on this show. There's always something to complain about while you're painting. You know, I think that's what makes it most relaxing, is that you can say, oh, geez, look at this and that, this is such a pain. And you go, oh, look, I did a terrific job despite the hardships. It's kind of like pro wrestling, you know? No, I mean, you don't know that, of course not. He doesn't like it at all. Except that good guy wins. It's always better, because the good guy almost always wins. Or at least used to. Now the bad guys win, but whoever wins, you know, you can't just win, right? You have to be almost beaten at least twice during the bout, and then make this miraculous comeback. So in that sense, this is sort of like pro wrestling, in that I get to complain about, oh, this is so hard to do, and I can't get a brush there, and this color's not working, or the paint is drying too fast. And then, ta-da! Total success. And you go, oh, look at that, that looks really good. Wow. If it hadn't been so difficult, no one would appreciate the work that went into it. So, there, that's the story. Well, this color is kind of dark enough that up against the green, it'll do. It's not too awful. It doesn't look bad. And it'll make a decent transition to the shirt that's underneath. There's a lot of that color. I feel bad about using the light blue. I just keep using it over and over again. Maybe it should be brighter. Maybe I should use like turquoise instead. it'd just be way too bright for the way this guy is coming together. But I don't want too many colors on it. There's always this tendency where there's, you know, where there's a lot of different layers and things. So everything gets painted a different color. Doesn't seem to be the kind of figure that would be really colorful. These are probably incredibly expensive fabrics. Seems like the kind of guy who would, you know, go out of his way to buy like the best fabrics, silks or whatever exists in this particular plane. I'm going to say I'm satisfied with that color. Now I'm going to paint the sash. Why am I going to do that? Because I like to paint down onto a raised surface from a low surface. I just find it easier to push the paint up to it than to try to paint down to a previously painted surface. And so we'll try to get the sash painted, then we'll see where it is, get all these little bits done. And then the next major color will be the light blue that I'll use for the shirt and extend down, because I've decided that even though the texturing is different here and here, it would make no sense for there to be a shirt in this. I don't know. He's wearing pants too. This will not be a real showy part of the outfit. Ah, man. Oh, jeez. Okay. Need to be careful. You know, just moving these things around, I knocked it over, and the last thing I want to do is break off the swords again. So I think I could do a couple of things. There's a little fringe back here that I'm going to actually paint brass. Let's see how that looks. Brass, or would he have a little metallic fringe on the back of his cloak? This bit up here. Yeah, I'm thinking, let's try that. Like a little metallic kind of fringe. If there's going to be a fringe, you want to be able to see it, right? Put it there. The brass color looks pretty good against the green. Got a bit up there on the green, so I'm going to have to touch that up. Getting it down onto this part, I don't mind. It's that it's going to be painted the light blue color, but that needs to be touched up. And then there's this thing right down the center that kind of holds things together. So where I painted the black, I'm going to paint that brass too. comes down. It holds it somehow in the front there. It holds that down. Moves the cloak down underneath here somehow. Okay. And then little tiny spot. Got it. Needs to be made green again on the back here. Touch it with more. You can just see I just got a little brass there. And we'll see how that dries. I might need to touch it with a little bit of the wash, but otherwise that might be okay. Maybe just this tiniest little bit up here too. I think, I'm not sure how those pieces will come together. I think when I paint the blue on here, that'll be okay. I don't need the black there. That's going to be okay on the back. Next color. Yeah, sure, I'm gonna do that next. I'm just gonna use the dark sand for that. It's kind of a brownish yellowish color that I'm hoping will complement rather than jump out it starkly against the like blue color that will be the main color. Put a drop of that in the little thing here. Yeah, there's a tricky part back here. One cannot get to from there. But we'll start up here, so at least I can see how it's going, how it's looking. Got a lot of holes in it as well. So I'm going to be using a wash on it later, to, like I did with the cloak, to bring out all the folds that the designer of this went out of their way to put in. There's the details there. We might as well show it all. Nice even line here. Where it meets that little brass connector thing. Okay, now we're going to try to work it around. into the back. The skin color, the shirt color on there is going to be a little bit of a challenge later. You may have to do some touching up back and forth. Little dangly bits here, and I think it's the same cloth. I could make those metallic as well, but I think that would be right. They kind of roll around. Part of the sash. You want to get the sash far in the back, but I can't get it all the way back because then I would get it on the cloth. I think that's good. Except where it meets the cloak back here, I think I could use a larger brush to fill it in, and I will. But first I want to get this demarcation line here. Goes underneath the cloak. And after that, it doesn't seem to come in contact with anything else. Just use the larger brush then to fill it in. Yeah, see, that got up. That's a little tricky because it goes underneath, but then it got up onto it. So I'm going to get some green out when I'm done with this and put it back along there. And we'll just fight back and forth until that line is the way I want it to be. This brush, the broad brush, right? Kind of, when I was painting the Warhammer figures, I mean, this is the finest brush I used. This just goes to show you, over time, you get detailed or you get less steady. Paint is kind of gummy. Basically, I want to get into all the little nooks and crannies and grooves. And then I'll be painting up to it with the light blue color, which will be the main color of the undershirt and kind of cloak, like cassock-like kind of thing. And then again, I'm going to be ending up using an umber wash on this to pick up the folds. Like there's a little knot there, and there's just little details that need to be brought to life that you can do with a wash or with dry brushing if you're able to dry brush. I really can't. I'm not very good at that at all, so I content myself with just using a wash to make that happen. So you can see that from the back, but further up, yeah, you can't see it and I can't get to it, so it'll be that. It's a little messy there, but I just wanted to make sure the base coat covered. And then there, see, I'm going to bring out the tea brush and touch that up with the green because I got up onto it too far. I think the sash color will look okay. And I want it to show up against the blues and the grays. And it will probably do that. See if this paint is still good. Tip of this brush. I'm going to deal with this line back here. Then as I do this green again, be careful to paint it back onto the sash. I'm going to have to make an inventory for purchasing paints soon. It's like sick green. So what sick green is happening is that it's the tip is gummed up. Paint in there. It's just that the little nozzle tip filled in. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here is get green paint in right along this line. Getting it back onto the sash. Is painting one color. The tip of the brushes. Okay, so that's not perfect, but it's much better. It looks okay from this side, and it looks okay from this side. That green doesn't show too much. Remember where I touched it up here? That's showing okay. So I think I can live with this line now. What we do next? The next one, the next obvious thing would be to paint this whole cloak thing. There's a lot of interesting demarcation lines getting in the back, shoulders here and there. There's a lot of little detail-y things, so this will take a little bit. I think I'm going to start at the top because this paint is dry, and then work down to where the sash is. It's a little sleeve there so you can see where the demarcation line is between the fur and that. So I'm going to just keep using this brush, which is behaving okay. And I'm going to use light blue. I'm going to start at the top, work my way down, and we'll do touching up if we need to. I'm going to start by using the paint in the bottle cap, so not to waste it all, but I'm using like dots of it, so I'll just use this until it starts drying up or settling, becoming unusable because it gets too viscous. starting here and painting up to the shoulder armor. Here. Another one of those where if I get all the boundary lines done, I might be able to use a larger brush, especially down here. Going in. Here, I need to be a little careful of where the metallic tassels are. Painting this, I'm going to paint the sleeve. In contact down here. And it's a darker blue armor, and so I need to be kind of cautious about that. Up later. Okay, and then it comes down around here, underneath, again up to the shoulder armor. And that's where you can see that gap that I painted black before. I'm just going to leave black because it's there. Can't really tell what's supposed to be underneath it, so I painted it just black so that you can see it, but it's not really part of anything else. And paint down to the sash here. A little bit there on the sash. Probably just a touch too far there. But when I do touch up, you know, it's just like you just pull out the paints and do tiny dots at a time. Check around, make sure I'm getting it. Yeah, not too bad. So what we need to do then back here is up to the cloak and the top of the sash. Okay. So just turn the rest of this all in here. This paint's starting to gum up. You can see because it's pulling the under painted part away from itself. But you know, I got some use out of the bottle cap paint. So there's a touch there. Make sure we get that. Do now. Tackle the other side. I'm gonna rinse this off first. So it's gumming up on the tip. Okay. Tackle the other arm. There. So after I finish the front here, we'll be doing that. Getting a little paint on the sword is not a problem, as long as the sword remains attached. And then we'll do the same as we did on the other side, where it was up against the let's be doing that. The rolled up sleeve bit there. It's the demarcation line. Then try to get underneath here. Okay, so now we need to get under the cloak. And again, the point isn't to get all the way under, but You get far enough under so that if you're looking at it, you're convinced that it is painted well. There's a good deal of black back there, so it looks like it's in the shadows. That's okay. And then you get in there and down to the top of the cloak. And paint this bit here. Okay. I need to get to the top of the sash. Looks like I can kind of do that. If I get onto the sash, it'd be easy to paint back to it, but I think that might be sufficient. So I can get, yeah, I can do this okay from here. Painting those little bits there will be a little bit tricky because of the swords that I do not want to mess with. Need to do is get these little demarcation lines in here. Need to paint up to that, up to the cloak, and up to the shoulder armor. Okay, getting it in this direction. Okay, that's not too bad. And those little bits here need to be really tell where the top of the sash is that clearly here. I think it's down lower here. Okay. So I want to get a little blue right there. So, there we go. So, looks like this, just want to make sure it's painted. Get so focused on the boundary lines that sometimes you miss chunks in the middle. Okay, well, I'm just looking at this now, and I'm seeing that this color will work okay. It doesn't clash It's not ostentatious. Seems to be covering pretty well. I'm just going to go around and look at the top part here. Make sure that things are kind of covered. And I'm going to start working on the skirt part of this down here. Let's start on this side. And there's these big areas that I'll probably use a bigger brush on, but need to get up. Like under here, there's this little scroll of fabric. Let's paint around. And the challenge back here is that it goes way back under the cloak. Touch up to the sash and then get enough behind there so you don't see black. I'm going to have to use the bigger brush on that. This just doesn't cover cleanly. But basically I'm just painting down up to this bottom of the sash here, getting the corners. Yeah, that's okay. And then it ends here. So that'll be the pants color. That little bit there. Okay, and then we'll do around the back and here. Get the paint in right underneath there. It's kind of like a raised, like a little gap in the print. We want the color to go underneath it, but not onto it. So there. And then still on this line here. You get a little bit of that same issue here where it goes way underneath the cloak. The sash ends there. We'll call that the dividing line. Okay, so I'm going to get the bigger brush out now and fill that in, because with the little tip of the brush, sometimes all you do is you just sort of push the paint around and it doesn't cover. Build up there. Okay, well, it served well. Now we're going to use this and just fill this in, hopefully without making too much of a mess, so we'll do that. Get underneath. Can't really see that, but that's where the pants go underneath. There, cover that. The pants will come up to it. Now, this is a little bit difficult here, but the little brush just wasn't getting the paint in deep enough. So I think this will work. Yeah, that looks okay. This just lets me cover a much bigger surface area and not leave brush marks all over the place. A little bit of rough area back here. I don't know if I can get in there or not. The little brush didn't really work. I might do that as when I do touch up. Just making sure we get a fairly good coat on here. Big smooth area, not much texture. Oh, okay. I would have totally missed that. It's way back here. See? It's the inside of it. I wasn't really paying attention, but that would have been very noticeable later on. Painting the pants underneath there, I don't know if that's even going to happen. We will see. There. That is texture that we don't really need. Push. I want to brush that off. And try it again. Okay, so I'm just looking around. This spaces under there still not right. I'm going to try to push it in with this. And it seems to work. Okay. Making sure I got the bottom of it all. This is where I look around to make sure I didn't miss like an entire chunk, like the bit under the back there. See, this dries into a pretty nice color. It's kind of flat. I mean, it's a really flat color, but I use the blue wash on it, and it almost always works for me. It ends up looking pretty nice. It just brings out the textures where there are some, like in the folds here, and it gives it a little deeper color. Looking at this now, what I'm being left with is, I can't tell if that's, I think that was part of the sash actually. I think it went across and I painted up onto it because I couldn't really see the dividing line that well. So I'll probably go back and do that, touch that up. And then the next big challenge will be the pants. And the challenging part of the pants will be way back under there. I might just try to give it like a hint of color down near the bottom, because you can't really see it and you can't really get to it. So, yeah. To let that dry a little bit. And then I'm going to put a base coat on the pants. The sash line there. Painting up to it, it just looked different than painting down. So I'm going to get the hand out again and do that while I'm still thinking about it. I mean, that's the kind of thing that can end up just missing later. So hopefully I can get that line back to where it should be as opposed to where it ended up being, because I couldn't really tell. But if you can see there, it just extends right across. Yeah, just like that. Yay. Okay, that worked. I'm going to do the pants, and that'll probably take the rest of the time. And then we'll finish this at some point in the future. I will go over what we've had. I'm wondering if we're even streaming. I don't know. There's been nobody in chat. Can't tell. If anybody else is watching. Nikki sometimes watches, but she's doing travel agency business today. I'm going to use for this the deck tan. Yeah, it's been really quiet in chat. I can't see the stream. I'm not sure anybody's watching or listening, so if this isn't working, much apologies. This is almost done. Just going to paint these pants up to the cloak line. Down along the feet. Back here, at least as high up as it seems to show. This is kind of where we're going to cheat a little bit by not painting where one cannot see. And that is there. Okay, I need to paint up the inside of the pants here. The most critical part is right up here where all the colors come together. You know, kind of like just underneath here where the pants are there, and the overcloak is there. Not too bad. And then on the inside, we'll just get to where we can. Most people aren't going to be looking up underneath here, I don't think. So we'll get that boundary line, at least, you know, the parts that are visible like that. At least potentially visible. But this is one of those where there will be unpainted areas in places that cannot be seen and definitely cannot be reached. So I'm just checking around there, and you know, taking a look at places where there should be paint. Yeah, that's okay. And that's where the sash was. We defined that boundary earlier. Okay, so I'm going to clean this brush, and then we'll do a recap of what we have accomplished today and what is still yet to be done. Okay, so apparently we are still streaming. That's good news. Hi, Afala. Thanks for letting me know. Okay, so what we have accomplished today is, for an hour and 15 minutes, we were struggling with things breaking. First of all, this guy is a dual wielder. So just to recap, this one was here, and this one was broken off and lost, and so I said, I'm going to fabricate a new one out of a toothpick. And in fact, I did. It actually ended up looking really quite good. Okay. And then I said, well, let's glue it on. But before that, this guy was epoxied to this base. He came loose. And so it was, well, let's re-epoxy this guy back to the base. That was a wonderful thing to do, except as I was scraping off the old epoxy, I broke this other sword. So we had a broken sword, a broken fabricated replacement sword, and a guy not attached to the base. So I broke out the 5-minute epoxy, and we spent the better part of a good long time mixing it up and sticking the guy back on the base first, because otherwise he'd be flopping around and couldn't hold it. And then we mixed some more up and stuck this blade on, and it sagged in kind of a sad little way, and I mixed up some more epoxy and we reinforced that, and feeling brave, decided to stick this one on as well. And after all of that time, we now have the guy on the base and 2 swords, including one that has been freshly fabricated to replace the one that was lost. And then we debated what to do with colors. Painted this green with the green wash, and now that it's dried, I think it came out really quite well. Debating many other colors, decided that this and this were the same fabric, and there was just a sash around them, so that's been painted light blue. The sash is painted and the pants painted, so we have basically the base coat Can't see if that's a reflection or if that's just some paint that's slopped onto that. I might just touch that up to be sure. We have the base coat on most of this. All that needs to be done with the base coat now really is the fur, doing the face detail, and then the swords, which will be, oh, I don't know, probably one of the last things to do. We've got some really nice curved little hilts and things on it, and blades. But that's going to take a fair amount of time, and we're kind of out of time now, so I'm just going to do this one tiny touch up here, because sometimes you just need to clean things up when you see them right away, otherwise you'll miss them later, or they'll haunt you. Like there's a spot right there. Right there, that needs to be a darker color. There, that's better. And so I have this, I'll look around. Seems to be adequate. Yeah. So what needs to be done is actually a fair amount of work yet. We need to paint the face detail, so a little red inside the mouth. Decide whether teeth are showing or not. You can kind of see some teeth. Those might get painted. Need to paint the base color on the face and the elbows and the hands and the feet. Put some eyeballs in, put little nose spots in, do the touch up around the edges, maybe a little dark or light, maybe a little light inside the ears, like this color. Then I'm going to do a blue wash on this just to give it some color variation. I'm not sure. Yeah, I will do a brown wash on the sash because I want to bring out the texturing, the knotting and things. I don't know if we'll be doing a wash on the fur. Maybe a little bit for, you know, just try to do some little shading, maybe tiny little bits of shading. Because this guy is going to probably be, I'm guessing what we call red-brown, which is kind of a dark brown. And the brown wash doesn't show much on it, but it you know, just little bits like around the fingers and the toes and the cheekbones and stuff. It'll give it some contouring. And we're going to do all of that without breaking the swords again. And the very last thing we'll probably do would be to paint the, we'll do some brass around here, around the hilts, and then the blades of the swords. So I'm saying, you know, there's still a fair amount of work to be done on this guy, but for the most part, the base coat is 80% done, I guess I'd say, just in terms of surface area anyway. And the shading will need to happen yet also. So, yeah, that's how he's coming along. And the colors are not bad. I was a little concerned about having too many colors or too contrasty colors, but I think, you know, it's okay. So that's what has been done, what needs to be done. I will congratulate myself again on recreating a blade to match the other one and getting them all stuck on, not breaking them off while I've been painting them. Okay, yeah. So one clock says it's 2 minutes to, and my computer says it's 8 minutes to. But there's really not enough time to get anything else started. I don't know, I could start putting some brown base coat in. Since I've got a few minutes left, maybe I'll just do that just to show how that's going to go. End early all the time. Sometimes we've been ending a little bit early. Pull this out. Yeah. Probably not going to finish it. I'm not going to get the head done. But I can probably do the elbows.
at the rate this is going, maybe I can get one elbow done. It's kind of fiddly getting it in between here, between the armor and the cloak thing. Okay, well, I'm not sure I'm glad I started this, but, you know, in a couple of minutes I need to do some blue touch-up there, where the brown got up too far onto the sleeve. But, you know, to get an idea of how it's going to end up looking, this fur is kind of dark. Suppose he should look menacing, right? And we'll do the hands here, and then there's kind of a cross hilt there, but we'll touch that up with like brass paint or something to show it later. That in the pommel. And we're going to pretend that that blob of epoxy there is sort of like a sword guard, because there's no going back on that. That's what's holding it on. And we'll read more specifically about what is what a little bit later. Let's see. 3 more minutes. Let's do the other elbow. Get done now, you don't need to do later. Got a lot of paint there. When I had the dark blue out to touch up another spot, I didn't see this. That's just like where a brush bumped right into it. At least I hadn't seen that before. So just to let you know, this is Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons. We do Twitch streaming. Our main show is D&D campaign that streams at 2 o'clock on Sundays, with an occasional break for vacations or holiday weekends during the summer. But watch social media. You can see what's coming up next. We're in the midst of a really interesting heisting campaign with great danger and intense planning. So please watch that. If you can't see it with live chat on Sundays, you can catch it on, I believe, YouTube, or actually listen to it as a podcast, which is kind of cool. So please do that. We do relaxing painting, or as we saw today, somewhat unrelaxed epoxying on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 10 until 2 Eastern. We will be taking off next week. We are taking a vacation, all of us together. And so we won't be streaming the painting show next week. We will be showing the D&D campaign this Sunday, though, this coming weekend, so please watch that if you can. And if you like what you're seeing, please follow us everywhere, wherever following can be done. And if you really, really like what we're doing, you can even go onto patreon.com/diceanddungeons and support us there. That would be most appreciated. So what I'm going to do now, since I started on the feet, is continue with this now getting gummy paint, get the other foot done, and then I'm going to pull out that dark blue color that's used for the armor and fix that spot that I saw earlier so that I don't forget about it. And this would go faster with a larger brush, but I got the little brush here, and I'm just going to finish this foot. So you get some extra time this week as I'm finishing what I started. Good glove there, and finish covering the bottoms of this foot here. Get out the medium blue one more time, cover up that spot, and then we will finish. So again, thanks for viewing, thanks for joining in. Watch us on Sunday, and we will be back a week from Monday when we return from our well-deserved break. Now, where was that spot? That was so obvious. There it is. So you can start to see what it looks like when the fur is painted in. Got a lot of head detail to do. And then it will be base coated and we'll be ready for washing and shading. Okay, so wash this brush off one last time. Thank you all again. Be sure to follow us on social media, and if you feel up to it and you like what you're seeing, please feel free to go to patreon.com, Dice and Dungeons, and support us. Thank you all. Have a good day.